You are the author of your own life story. In your own life, you get to be who you want to be. Like
the chaos of everyday life.
And that's the reality of it, right? Like real life is chaotic.
How can I show my parents that I love them? How can I show my friends that I am worthy of trust?
Like, oh, like shit. Like, I think I heard a lot of people. You know what it actually taught me? It taught me who my real friends were.
Yeah.
Versus like drinking buddies. Writing is my forte.
Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to the Long-Term Podcast. I'm your host, Advin Villa. Today, we have final year secondary education students who is a published poet and on her way to write her second book, Gina Schnepper. We will discuss writing your own story, how you get to control your own actions and define your own narrative, sobriety, and how quitting drinking changed Gina's life, and what it's like to write, edit, and publish a book. Everyone, welcome. Awesome. Yeah, thank you for coming to the Long-Term Podcast. Gina Schnepper, everyone.
Hi, thank you for having me, Advin. This is such a treat.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Gina Schnepper. I am 22 years old. I'm from Ardrossan, Alberta. And I am finishing my last year of post-secondary studies at the U of A in secondary education, which is super cool. I love to teach. I love to write, as I'm sure we'll talk about today. I love my cat, Finnegan. And I'm big on metaphors. I'm sure we'll get into a lot of metaphors today.
Yeah, something about metaphors, it just like really instills it in your mind. Like if somebody told you a fact, it's just a fact. There's nothing really sticks. But then when somebody tells you like a story or like some sort of parable with it, like a message, then that just sticks with me.
Yeah.
I don't know I think that's like that for most people.
I think that like, I don't know, in my own learning, I've always loved thinking about things a different way. You know, like a metaphor is comparing two unlike things.
Yeah.
Without the use of like or as. You know, I remember the first metaphor I ever learned was I am a hurricane. And it's still true to my own life. My mom tells me that every day. Gina, you're such a hurricane. I'm not obviously a hurricane. I'm a person, but I think that makes sense in my brain.
So let's go into the first topic, which is writing your own story with controlling your actions and narrative despite the adversity. Can you share a moment when you realized you had control over your own narrative despite the challenges you faced?
Yeah. Growing up, I had this little sign in my room and my mom put it there. It said, you are the author of your own life story. And I think about that a lot, and it's kind of come and gone throughout my own life. But I really think that you truly are. You get to control the narrative of your own story. You get to, you know, be who you want to be. Obviously, there's going to be things and circumstances that are out of your control, but I really think that, you know, in your own life, you get to be who you want to be. Like I said, you get to control how you react to things, right? You can't always control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond to things. Someone told me once, you're not responsible for the things that happen to you, but you are responsible for your actions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there are things that are out of our control, like our height, like our parents.
Sure.
The socioeconomic status growing up, and when you're a kid, kind of the parenting styles and kind of all the things that we are presented with growing up, even going to school. But thinking about these things and going, oh, what if this was changed? What if I was taller? What if I was better looking? What if this and that? You just ruminate onto these things and it's kind of futile. But then when you actually focus on what you can control, which is how hard can I work at this task right now? How can I show my parents that I love them? How can I show my friends that I am worthy of trust? And will I choose anger, or will I despair on this? Will I
Absolutely.
see the brighter side of things? And there's so much power to that mode of thinking. And are you familiar with the idea of the internal locus of control and the external locus of control?
No, please tell me.
It's like the internal locus of control is all within. So when you fail at something, you attribute it to the inner workings of your mind and the effort-based actions that you took. And so when you fail at a test, when a relationship goes awry, when you do not get what you want, you view it as, oh, this is something that I could have done better. This is all internal. This happened because I didn't put enough effort. Next time I'll do this differently, and then in contrast to that, an external locus of control is, oh, I got this grade because of my genetics. I got this because of the things that have happened to me. Because this person was mad at me, I did this. So, and they've done many studies, and the people that didn't have control or had the mode of thinking of an external locus of control just had worse outcomes.
Interesting. Yeah, it's almost like the nature versus nurture argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. But I didn't answer your question. Sorry. I'll answer it now. I think a moment when I fully realized that, I am the author of my own life story was I was reading a book at my in my first year at UBC. A lot of people don't know this, but I started out my university career out in Vancouver. I went to the University of British Columbia for a couple of years, and then I transferred over to the University of Alberta, where I'm finishing my my undergraduate, which is cool. But anyways, I was in my dorm room in my first year, and I was taking this English class, and one of the books that we had to read was a book called Wild by Cheryl Strayed. Are you familiar with this book?
I'm not.
Okay, it's a great book. Everyone should read it. It's basically about this woman who travels on foot from the border of Mexico to the border of Canada along what's called the Pacific Crest Trail, the PCT. And it's just a journey of hope and resilience and, overcoming obstacles and stuff like that, obstacles that nature throw at you, but also, like we were talking about, internal obstacles, that can I do this kind of mentality. Sorry. And I really connected with this book. I really did. I really thought that it was, the end all be all for a while. I really liked the metaphors that were in it. I really liked the narration of the book. The author is telling her story. It is almost autobiographical. And in the book, the author talks about feeling like trash. Just, I get to be junk, I get to be trash is the quote that I read. And I felt that. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I am junk, I am trash. I had all of these negative self-talk kind of pieces floating around in my mind. And I was really thinking about how I wanted to change that. And so I kept reading the book. The author travels and she does all these amazing things. But then at one point she realizes, all of these things that I've done in my life, what if I just forgave myself? You know what I mean? What if I just let go of the past, focused on the present, and looked forward to the future? What if I forgave myself for my actions? What if I forgave myself for, all of these things that I've done that have made me a quote unquote bad person, have made me junk, have made me trash? And that really struck a chord with me. I really thought about how I viewed myself, about how others viewed me. And I really thought about how much I really wanted to not be trash anymore. I didn't want to be junk. I wanted to forgive myself for things that had happened to me, but also for what I did. And in reading that, I let go of a lot of things. I did. I let go of a lot of things. I forgave myself for actions that I'd done, choices that I made. You talked about choices a little bit earlier. And I think that, a lot of what defines us in our life are our choices. Do you eat a banana for breakfast or toast? Do you go to McDonald's after a long day, or do you go home and cook yourself a meal? Do you run a marathon, or do you not run a marathon? You know what I mean? All these things. Do you go to Vancouver for your schooling, or do you stay in Alberta? All of these choices that we've made define us, really. But it's important to remember that things that happen to you are not you. We were talking the other day, Advin, about Carl Jung. And one of his most famous quotes is, "I am not who I am what I become."
Beautiful. And you had mentioned about forgiveness, and this quote came to my mind of, forget who it's attributed to, but I asked God to be able to forgive my worst enemy. And so I forgave myself.
Yeah.
So it goes into the mind of thinking where you are your worst enemy.
Totally.
And that self-talk of going, I'm stupid, and I'm not good enough, and this person did this to me. It's all very heavy. And I feel that's a lot of what holds many back from realizing their true potential. And for me, I didn't really know I had this mode of thinking up until I really looked at my mind from an objective point of view. Easier said than done, but I noticed every time I made a mistake, I would call myself stupid. I'd call myself, oh, why would you do this? You must have dementia. You're not good enough.
Yeah, a lot of negative self-talk.
Yeah, and that's that shame. And I used to think that, oh, this is just like normal. This is how I operated. But then I realized just how much of a negative outcome that has served my life.
Totally.
It's really grotesque. And when it really becomes a part of you and you lash out at others, because it's really heavy to be able to carry that burden of that negative self-talk, because it just adds up. And once you made the realization, whether it be about a book, and you had read that book about that woman who had traveled from Mexico all the way to the United States,
to Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, all the way through the United States.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really
journey.
cool story. Really cool story. I think you'd like it.
Yeah, I definitely, I'll add that to my list of books to read. Love reading. It doesn't matter how you access that realization of, this is my life and I need to take charge, rather than blaming others, whether it be about a song or a mentor, a book. Internalizing that is just one of the things that a pattern that I've seen has really transformed many people's lives. And yeah, it's phenomenal. Why did that book change you though? Like, guys, I know you're a big reader.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've that narrative. It's very common, kind of, in the internal mode of thinking of the main character and kind of the struggles that they've made. It's very kind of, that resonates with a lot of other books, even if you read Harry Potter or like even Hunger Games, like kind of
all those things.
Why that book?
I think it was because it felt inherently personal to me. Maybe it was the time of my life that I was at. But I really felt that, these words very specifically were catered to exactly what I needed to hear at that moment. And you know what? Maybe it could have been a different book. It could have, maybe it could have been Harry Potter if I was rereading it at that point in my life. But this book specifically, it's a great book. Like I can't say enough about it. And I think there's a movie about it. And of course, I don't think the movie does the book justice, but that's just me.
That's every single time. It rarely can, maybe in the 1%.
Maybe in the 1%.
Yeah.
But anyways, I really think that this book was telling me what I needed to hear in the moment. And I really think that's the power of words. Words I feel are so powerful. Words have so much meaning. And I I really appreciated in that moment being told exactly what I needed to hear. I felt like I had been searching and searching and searching for, this permission to forgive myself, and seeing another person do it and then write about their story was almost, it was a huge burden off of my shoulders.
It must have been so cathartic. Hey? And there's this quote by Alain de Botton. Do you know this author?
Yes.
Yeah. And he goes, there is no perfect book. It's just the books that you read at that time serve you at that moment. And and to add on to that, Mark Manson says this, that to actually truly understand the texture of someone's mind, to go within, is to read one of their books.
Totally.
Whether it be about fiction, nonfiction, this is the way they operate, and they spend time thinking, whether it be about the story of this girl that they've made up, or the story of orcs and wolves.
Yeah. Or the story of their life.
Yeah. Or a biography. This is them. And to truly understand someone, while it is impossible to be in someone's psyche, because it's just, unless they make an invention someday.
Oh, I long for that. I long for that day. I would love to be inside everyone's mind.
Imagine you just get to truly, truly understand.
Yeah.
Like empathy at 100%. Definitely that would break down a lot of kind of that, our mistrust and kind of lack of empathy. But
I think empathy is a really important thing too, to be able to understand and really feel what other people are thinking. It's a skill that not a lot of people have, but also like it's a trait that's inherently unique to humans. Did you know that?
Yeah. It's powerful. I think that the only reason that I'm able to actually connect and have people come here, the level of emotional intelligence that I've developed and I've kind of instilled and brought upon other people. And it's phenomenal to really revel in the fruits of my labor of empathy. It
really is.
The people that do not sharpen that tool really end up shooting themselves in the foot, because that janitor that you've been looking down on, that person that maybe you don't have anything in common with, that boss that you just think is menacing, that you don't think you have any solid connection with, you dig deep enough, you have enough patience, you'll find something, whether it be your common suffering, or whether it be you guys like a particular video game. Because I think in this day and age too, people are too quick to judge people, or they go, oh, this is a boring friendship. Like, they don't even give time for it to develop into a friendship. And I see this with people that I talk to at the gym, on campus. They don't give me time to be able to be recognized. Totally. And so I think they're a great person, but then I see that in myself too. I'm not the most patient, and I go, had I given that person time and effort, maybe you would have blossomed into a friendship.
Yeah. And I think that like really speaks to the fact that we've talked about this before, but everyone has their own story, right? Yeah. And before you ask me the next question, I want to ask you a question. What is your story, Advin?
My story is, it's filled with a lot of resentment, because when I was born in the Philippines, and we were above average family. We owned a business, and we were upper class. But my mom and dad separated in the Philippines, and my dad went all the way to Canada, and my mom and my dad didn't get along. And I was this big mama's boy. Loved my mom. She's the best thing in the world. Very hardworking, resilient, and she was dealt the bad cards. She was mistreated. And yeah, there's also my sister too, and we got along well, played all the time. And my mom had made the ultimate sacrifice of giving me to my dad to go to Canada when I was 9,
Wow.
because it was a the best pathway for my future. And yeah, I didn't see her for 11 years. I dealt with a lot of separation anxiety, got in a lot of fights with my dad, didn't really get along with a lot of the family members here, uh, because it was all new to me, and I was just like dealing with all these pent up emotions of why, why me? I was fine in the Philippines. We were fine, and
Mm.
why is it suddenly just now? It's just like
Why is it
no, it's
different?
like
Why did
very
these
foreign.
change?
And
Yeah.
yeah, so I think like elementary was dope. I made new friends. It wasn't like I was socially isolated, but there was still that burden in me, kind of that void of what if, why was I separated with my mom, who I loved dearly? And I was
Yeah.
even mad at her. Like, why would you just give me up that easily? And I was mad at my dad, and I was mad at everyone. And I made pretty good friends, but then they'd kind of see through the texture of my mind sooner or later that I was a bit manipulative and I was defensive. I didn't want people to know who I truly was, because I was scared that they were just going to leave me anyways. And I wasn't
Mm.
able to decipher that up until like a decade later
Yeah.
of all this self introspection. Uh, yeah. Fast forward to all the way after high school. And yeah, high school was the peak of my life. I mean, I had lots of friends. I was popular in a way. That's even sounds so vain, but yeah, I looked in the mirror after high school, after kind of the pandemic time, and I felt that high school was the peak of my life, and I had never faced my problems, and I'd never done anything, and my fights with my family members got so bad. I surrounded myself with people that were just there for the good times, and that wasn't necessarily their fault. I just wasn't willing to be vulnerable. I wasn't willing to change. I was
Totally.
just there for the bar,
Mhm.
for consuming all these things that weren't good for my body. And while I did work out, the relationships that I had, the kind of the gym bros, yeah, it was all just surface level. Like, I didn't really
Yeah.
feel connected. Like, I did. There were some times where I did, but in the most part, yeah, it was unhealthy. But yeah, I looked in the mirror one day and I went, I had just recently fought with my dad,
Mm.
and I yeah, I just didn't like what I saw. And my dad was crying at that time, and I just, something clicked, that level of empathy. The movie Inside Out.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah, I love that
I
movie.
love that
That kind of
movie.
that saddest part just like awoke, and kind of a core memory just rolled out, like those little orbs.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I went downstairs, and yeah, I told my dad, "Hey, you all make mistakes.
Yeah. You made your
I
amends.
made mistakes too. We're all like, I'm not gonna act like the victim anymore." And then yeah, since then, it was not linear. There were still a lot of fights that here and there.
Mm.
There was still a lot
Mm-hmm.
of guilt, shame. I still experience it here and there, but it's exponentially better. And now my dad, my brother, and I, we all work out. They've all developed a much healthier lifestyle. We all forgive. We all love each other before they go to bed. Before my entire family goes to bed, I give them a kiss on the head. Good night. Love you. Normalize that. But yeah, just I am much more at peace.
That's really
That
great to hear.
that's my story. I still struggle, but I know that I am in a better place.
That's amazing. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of self work.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I think that it's important to listen to others. You know what I mean? I think you
Yeah,
do a lot of listening.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks for asking.
Always.
Uh, what are some practical strategies for you to stay resilient when dealing with situations outside of your control?
Outside of my control. Well, I think that everything's mostly outside of my control. I think about the serenity prayer a lot. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? I think that I wrote a little checklist for myself a while ago about how I would ideally respond to adversity, ideally respond to situations that I had no control over. And it starts with just taking a deep breath, you know, deep breathing in general, it's good for us, keeps us alive.
The breath, it really draws you into the moment.
Absolutely. But it also, like, on a more anatomical level, it helps to regulate your nervous system, right?
Yes.
And if something happens, let's say, a couple weeks ago, my car window got smashed when I was at work. No one stole anything, but someone just decided that they wanted to smash my car window. And I came out, I found it, and right away, I had that switch in me, that snap, and I was like so angry. I was like, I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to feel. It was just like a very convoluted mess of emotions. And then I remembered my checklist and I took a deep, deep breath. Actually, I took several.
What's the checklist?
I'll tell you about it.
Sure.
So it starts with taking a deep breath.
Okay.
And then I like to consider things from other people's perspectives. That's my number 2. Take yourself out of your body and think about things from a different perspective. If we're going on this example from like my car window getting smashed, maybe someone saw something in my car that they really needed. Maybe it was someone who's unhoused and maybe there was a sweater on my seat and they really needed a sweater. And it's important to understand things from other people's perspectives because it gives you a lot of insight into how are you feeling? Okay. But how are other people feeling? And I think that's a really important thing to understand. And it helps to develop empathy. I think that empathy is a really important tool in our toolkit that helps us understand the world. And so I took a step back. I said, okay, maybe someone was feeling really angry. They needed to smash a car window. Does that justify it? No, of course not. But it just helped me understand things outside of my own skin. And then my next step is to kind of just like remove myself from the situation and think about 5 years down the line. I have a kind of a general rule. If it won't matter to you in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 minutes thinking about it. Don't waste your energy, And I was like, okay, is this car window going to matter to me 5 years down the line? Probably not, Will I have some resentment that it happened? Will I have some resentment that I had to spend, my money to repair a car window that I didn't break? Yeah, of course I did. But I also recognize that, in the grand scheme of things, this is not the end all be all, right? And then my next step is to really breathe in the situation and think about what your next step is. Okay. In this same situation, my next step was to call someone, I'll make a police report, call my dad, let him know what happened. I'm probably going to need a ride to get my car window fixed. I'm probably going to need I'm going to need all these things. But it just like really making a list in my head of, okay, what's each next thing? Because if you get stuck on a cycle of like, repetition, just like self-pity and stuff like that, you will never move on. I'm using this example of my car window getting smashed, but this can apply to a lot of other things in your life. And then my last step is asking yourself what you need. I do this a lot with a lot of my friends who go through tumultuous times and struggle with things that are outside of their control. I ask them, do you need comfort? Do you need solutions? Do you need space? Or do you need distractions? And I find that 9 times out of 10, most of the time, people just want comfort in the situation, right? Thinking about getting my car window smashed, like I was a bit of a mess after it. I was crying. I was very, I'd lost a lot of faith in the world. I was just like, why would someone do this? Even going through those steps. But I realized that what I needed at that moment, I just wanted a hug. I just want someone to hug me and just be like, it's okay. You know what I mean? And so I really think that assessing your own needs is a skill, and assessing what you need in moments that you can't control builds resilience.
Yeah. That safety net of having the foundation of how to combat these negative emotions that arise when things do inevitably come, and they do.
Mm-hmm.
This life happens,
Life does
and
happen.
you need to be able to have a foundation like your checklist of the deep breaths and thinking about the 5 years in the future. Is this going to be applicable to my future, or can I just solve it? Can I go, oh, this is what happens, this isn't the first time this has happened to anyone, I'm not special in this suffering, this is, and there's a solution to this. And maybe at the end of the day I just need a hug, maybe I just need that comfort. And you have the kind of that foundation. Did you build this yourself?
I did, yes. This is Gina Schnepper, trademarked.
Awesome. Sweet. For everyone listening, you can't take this idea now. Trademarked. But yeah, it's, the breath too is such a good tool. And to bring awareness to, okay,
totally,
putting the autonomic nervous system into conscious thinking is just such a big tool that I've implemented in the chaos of everyday life.
And that's the reality of it, right? Like real life is chaotic. Real life is.
I always say that. Like, we live in a
it's
chaotic
unpredictable.
world.
You can't control what happens.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. I think, especially for people our age, is the control aspect to things. I think a lot of people crave that control. I'm one of them. I'm a control freak. If anything happens that's outside of my control, which is 90% of my life, I need to take a step back. I need to take a deep breath. I need to consider how things are going to look 5 years down the line. I need to ask myself what I need, Yeah.
But it's like accepting the things that you don't actually know what's going to happen. Like you can make all these predictions 5-10 years down the road, even a week from now. You have this expectation of, oh, on this day, I'm going to go to work, and then I'm going to come home, eat this, or go out with my friends and this. But no, maybe your friend cancels. Yeah. Maybe like you get a flat tire on the road. Yeah. Maybe a loved one dies.
Yeah, maybe,
right?
Maybe.
There's all these things. And there's this book called The Stress Prescription by Alyssa Epple. And it's like expecting the unexpected. It's a mindset that she's studied tremendously, and it's expecting the things that will arise out of your control and accepting them. So just being comfortable with that.
And I really think the key word there is acceptance.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Acceptance is hard because acceptance is also understanding, and acceptance is also knowledge, right? And experience.
Yeah. It's going about life and overcoming these obstacles and learning from them, even if it sets you back in life. Right? Because
totally.
A lot of those.
There's a lot of those. Have you ever heard of burnt toast theory?
No, I haven't.
Okay, burnt toast theory is a fun one. And it's, that's just what I call it because that's what I've read about it as. You might know it as something else, but it's basically this theory that like everything happens for a reason. And we may not know that reason in the moment, but looking back on our past, we can say that, oh, that happened for a reason, and I'm glad it happened. It's called burnt toast theory because it comes from this ideology that, you're getting ready for work in the morning, maybe you work a 9 to 5, and you're making your breakfast and you burn your toast. And you're all mad because you burnt your toast, and now you're going to be late for work because you got to re-toast the toast and, all these things. But maybe that extra 2 minutes that you spent re-toasting the bread to make your new toast saved you from a car accident on the way to work.
I often think about that. Like, actually, I put in, like, I think a lot about my existence and kind of the things that have happened leading up to right now.
Yeah.
And especially when I'm alone, when I'm not engaging in a conversation, I think of, oh, I didn't say hi to that person. if I didn't reach out to Maria, then the chances of you knowing about me,
Yeah.
then me asking you to come on the pod, then this wouldn't happen, and then I wouldn't release the episode, and then I wouldn't have gotten to know my story,
Yeah. The
your
butterfly
story.
effect.
It's like,
Yeah.
if I hadn't gone to ABJ, I would be going to Facey, and I'd have a completely set of friends. If
Yeah.
I didn't go to this, if that didn't happen, it's also mind-boggling, and that's like really uncomfortable for a lot of people.
It really is.
But it's just, I like to add meaning and purpose to my life. I know hate is a strong word, but I'm going to use hate.
Okay.
I hate the argument of no free will. Have you ever heard of people talk about that?
I have.
I was listening to this podcast, and this guy, world-renowned Dr. Robert Sapolsky, and his argument for free will is just, yeah, you have no control. Everything that happens to you, it's just because of biology, of evolution, and you have no control over your thoughts. All the interactions, everything that comes out of your mouth, it's just because that's what you've done to survive. It's just through technology, through this. And I think that's such a atrocious, terrible, destructive mentality of, I think for me, okay, personally, maybe other people gain solace from that mindset, but if I didn't have meaning, Gina,
Yeah.
like let's say I believed in lack of free will,
Sure.
I wouldn't be doing this.
No.
I wouldn't be
God, no,
doing
you
half
wouldn't.
the things I'd be doing. I'd be really hedonic. Like I'd probably engage in a lot of hedonism and a lot of pleasurable short-term acts, and I wouldn't plan ahead. I think it's like that for most people, because most people that I've surrounded myself with, every single action they take, it's because they can. We talked about choice. We talked about decision. When you strip away a person of their belief in free will, let's say everyone in the world thought there was no free will, I think that would be destructive.
I think it would too. But I also think it would take away a lot of the elements of human life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I said to them, I was like, do you think that God created humans because he was lonely? Or do you think that humans created God because they were lonely? And I think that comes down to a lot of what you're talking about with free will. You know, do you believe that we were put on this earth for a reason? What is that reason?
Say goodnight to my dad and tell him I love him.
That's a great answer. No, seriously, you're laughing, but that's a great answer.
No, really. Like,
Yeah.
I mean that. And I think it's like comedic in a way because it's so simple. Like my brother, when he just got in with his Cheeto hands, which probably I'm going to get mad at him because he's probably going to get that all over the couch. And
But he's a kid. He's a kid.
But that's the meaning of life. I think that's why God put me on earth. But what about you? What's the meaning for life for you?
I've been asking these questions for a long time. I've been asking myself these questions for a long time. But I remember I was probably in junior high when I first was able to verbalize this kind of existential crisis that I was having. What is the meaning of life? You know, why me? You know, why am I here? Kind of thing. Why
do I suffer? I didn't ask to be born.
Yeah. Also, all of those questions, which are very normal things to question as you grow up.
No, it's not. For a lot of people, I think it's kind of, you're in the very introspective type. I think most people don't. I'd say.
Really?
I have a very
catered friend
gym
group.
bro science. I think that's just from what I've seen. Majority of people don't ask these questions, but they go on.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm just thinking about, my friends and I, we sit around the campfire and we ask all these philosophical questions. That's not normal? No?
No, it's not. No, you guys should be locked up.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyways, I remember asking my music teacher. when I was probably in grade 7, grade 8. I was like, what's the meaning of life?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was that kid.
Yeah, that kid.
I was that kid.
Like, whoa, it's a 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, Gina.
Yeah, pretty much.
You just laid that on me.
Yeah, he's like, go back to your recorder.
Yeah, go back to playing Ode to Joy.
Pretty much. But he was a great guy. And he looked at me and he said, Gina, I believe that the meaning of life And this is not, to all the viewers out there, this is not like, the answer. This is just my opinion. But I believe that the meaning of life is to love. Love as many people as you can, as hard as you can, for as long as you can. Because what are we without love?
Robots.
Seriously.
What are we without love? I think we would be manipulative, kind of selfish, destructive beings that just pillage and ruin the environment.
But would we even exist?
No.
No?
We would kill each other because people would rise to the top of just power and money, and just everything would be disposable, expendable.
Mm-hmm.
Love is the answer.
I think. Maybe I'm just a hippie who just wants to hold hands and dance and sing Kumbaya, but
I can tell people I'm no tree hugger, but I think love is the answer, bro. I love life. Like, I just want to love everyone in the world.
Yeah.
But then again, then I got cut off, and I get the middle finger thrown at me in traffic, and I'm like, maybe love isn't the answer.
You know what a good one? You know what a good one for that is? I've stopped flipping people off when I drive. It's not worth my energy. I give them a thumbs down. And that makes people even more angry, which I just find funny, but whatever.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. But anyways, I really think that love makes us who we are. If without love, what are we? Right. And I was reading the other day. I was reading a great book the other day. It's called Dayspring by Anthony Oliveira. It's a bit of a controversial book, but I like it so far. It's a book of poetry. And he says in it that we cannot save everyone. We can only love them. And I think that's really important to remember, growing up, and even still to this day, I do have a little bit of a savior complex. I'm like, yes, I was born to...
I actually find that really interesting. You're the first person that at least that's been verbal about it.
I think a lot of people have it and just like either don't understand what it is, that need to want to save everyone, and that need to, be everyone's best friend and, help people, and I've really, really worked on toning it down, but even this morning, I couldn't help myself. I texted you on my way here. I was like, hey, do you want a coffee? Like, you know what I mean?
People pleaser?
Oh, yeah. Big people pleaser. People pleaser.
I found back then I used to say what people thought they wanted me to hear rather than the truth. And I think that's something that I've been working on. I still catch myself doing that, but you don't need everyone to like you.
No, and that's been also hard for me to accept. That's why I can't go into politics.
Yeah. I feel like politics just ruins the best people, eh?
It really does.
You just get all the flaws just arise.
It really does. That's power. I don't know. But I really think that, I really think that love is the answer. And that's me. I think that
I agree.
Love pulls people in directions that they wouldn't normally think so. But getting out of that idea and headspace that you have to please everyone all the time is really important. You know what I mean? I felt that growing up. I felt like I had to be that person who, fulfilled everyone else's dreams for them. I felt that I needed to do what everyone else thought I needed to do. And it was only through the idea of understanding and love and passion that I was like, no, like, I want to do what makes me happy, man. I want to do the things that I want to do. I want to change the world in my own way.
I want to read you this quote, actually.
You're full of quotes.
I love quotes. And I think there's this quote about love that is just phenomenal. And I think that you had mentioned that writing and like being able to understand each other through words is like, it's immensely powerful. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. 1 Corinthians 13. And it's just, love is everything that is of malice and evil. It's just the opposite of, even good isn't a good way to describe it. Love is just the most powerful force.
Yeah.
How do you encourage others to take ownership of their stories even when life feels unpredictable or unfair?
Okay, I know I wrote a whole thing for you about it, but I'm going to change my answer. I like to listen. That's why I asked you to share your story today, because I think that listening is a trait that's been lost, especially in our generation. You know, a lot of it is about, let's talk about me, let's talk about me, let's talk about me. But I really think that listening to people and honoring their stories is a really, really powerful way to understand, and with compassion, with empathy, and all of those, you know, big ideas that we're kind of talking about today, you can understand, you know, what people have gone through, and that's a really important thing.
Mhm. Empathy and being able to just listen to others is a tool that not only brings you connected and makes you grounded, it alleviates a lot of the pain and suffering. Because for me, I still burden myself with all these feelings of inadequacy and just, I don't feel like life is going my way, and I feel like I should be doing more, and that there's things that I should say. Why is that person not with me? Why does she not notice me? Why is that friend not acting the way that they're supposed to in my expectations? But then going back to not, I don't know, just focusing what you can control and just doing your best, and at the end of the day accepting you for who you are. And there's this idea by this guy named Chris Williamson. It's called reverse charisma. There is the charisma of going, you're smiling at a certain point and you can work the room. You can make people like you.
Oh yeah.
And people leave the room and they feel, oh wow, like Advin was such a dope guy. Cool story. Or you could engage in reverse charisma where you listen to the person you're talking to, and you give, instead of going in your phone every 2 minutes without engaging in them with 100% of your focus, you actually give them your time and effort and ask them questions with actual enthusiasm, not force, and you know this internally, and to the best of your ability. And they leave that event, they leave that coffee or lunch or whatever reunion, and they go, wow, I feel like I matter. Wow, I
Yeah.
feel like Gina, Advin, they really listened to me. They really made me feel like I was human. And of course, there's also the line where you can't do too much for other people and you have to prioritize yourself. But once you have checked all the boxes of you are whole, and you can't be chopping off your fingers for
give
other
to
people,
others,
right?
yeah.
Extending your love to people by listening is prioritizing reverse charisma, as the idea was labeled, is an idea that I believe everyone should leverage to,
Totally.
yeah, to really make others feel grounded and connected
And loved.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people have a lot of ideas about, oh, like, you know, love. It's always this romantic connection. But, you know, have you ever heard of Eliot's different types of love? You know those?
I have, but I don't have them memorized.
I don't either.
I know
But
there's
I know that there are
companionship
many different types of love.
like passionate.
I think there's 5.
Yeah.
There's like romantic love and like a friendship love and like a familial love. And there's one other I can't remember, but the last one is agape. You know, have you ever heard of agape?
No.
Okay, so agape, I think it's a religious term, so don't you know, don't go on a witch hunt if I get this wrong. But from my understanding, agape is that love that like you can only feel with like God. And a lot of people spend their lives searching and searching and searching for this type of love. And it's very rare, but some people do find it. And it's not always in a romantic partner. Sometimes it can be in that friend, but it's most prevalent in that religious experience, you know, in that spiritual awakening kind of thing where you feel just totally understood and you feel this unconditional love. And I think that's probably the key word there is unconditional. No matter what you say or do or feel, you know, it's this idea that like God will love you no matter what.
Yeah. A lot of what people do, whether it be to get an education, whether it be to go to the gym, to get a better body, to feel better, to enhance their conversation skills, to better their writing, it's to extend to others that, oh, they are capable, hence they should be loved.
Yeah.
It's to prove something.
And we are all worthy of love.
We are
worthy of love.
All worthy of love. But there's that unconditional love that the majority of people do not experience.
And will never experience. And that's a sad thought to me. But I think that's also
I felt that. I
complex.
experienced it in bouts. I have seen people that do seem to experience it all the time, and they're not happy all the time. They're just comfortable in their own skin. I've experienced it in bouts. There's some times where I'm walking, I'm like, my family has unconditional love for me, but then we still get into fights, and I still get into that mental soup, swimming in my negativity. But then God, when I am truly connected with God, I feel this, like I could be walking through a wall of bullets and I would feel untouched. That's the way I experienced that, and it could last days or weeks, and it dissipates, and I look for that again, and I don't know how to access that, whether it be I experience it sometimes by going to the church or reading a quote or talking to a friend or praying, and there's a lot of dilemmas in my life that do propagate. The only way that I can solve them is through prayer, and that's not backed up by science, or I can't pinpoint that to anything, but it just seems to solve what I've propagated in my own mental soup of negativity, and somehow prayer solves it. God is there for me, and I don't really know a bunch of the stories, and I don't know the specifics onto Christianity, but
me neither.
I know that I am here for a purpose and meaning. And
Wow, that's incredible. I'm so happy that you feel that. That's really like, no, seriously.
Yeah.
That's a really
It's not
cool
all the
thing.
time though. That's why I can keep going.
Yeah, but to err is to human, right? Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? We can't all be that all of the time. Great.
Sobriety and how quitting drinking changed your life. What motivated you to make the decision to quit drinking, and what challenges did you face during that journey?
Yeah, I think that my journey to achieve sobriety was tumultuous, right? It had a lot of ups and downs. And I finally realized that in my own life, I felt like alcohol just had this like overt power over me, that I was powerless to it. It came down to control, right? And I really hated the aftermath. I really hated how I acted when I was drinking. And I hated like the next day, like, like anxiety. Oh, what did I do last night? Did I black out? Those kinds of things. And so the journey to achieve sobriety, it actually, like, when I finally decided, okay, that is it. I've had my last drink. It was an easy choice. For so long, I really felt that I had to change everything else about my life. I'll just, not date this person anymore. Like I'll move, I'll, read every self-help book on the shelf. But I can always keep drinking around. That was kind of my train of thought. I don't have to get rid of drinking, or, maybe I'll take a month off, or I'll take a week off. But the decision to finally really, really understand that, okay, like this is actually a little bit of a problem in my life, and I don't like who I am. It was like you said, you took a long, hard look in the mirror and you decided that you didn't like what you saw. So you made a change. Right. And I think that takes a lot of willpower. I really do think it does. Anyone that I've ever met in the sober community, we talk about having this, this gift of desperation, God, as you will call it. And you feel so desperately sick of being sick. You're sick of it. And yeah, that was really important for me to understand. And now, being sober, it's transformed my life. After, the first month or two, your head starts to clear, you get rid of the brain fog, and of it all, you begin to understand things, and you begin to have more empathy, and you begin to really understand shit, I think I hurt a lot of people when I was drinking. And that's a hard thing to have to come to terms to. You begin to understand your resentments. I hate the world because of XYZ. I hate my family because of XYZ. And I don't hate my family. I love my family very much. But
a lot of people think that way once they're engaged in the alcohol abuse.
Absolutely. And for a long time, I was like, alcohol abuse. I could never abuse alcohol. I love alcohol. You know what I mean? But just understanding that it was a really unhealthy relationship. And, a lot of the time my next, my train of thought was, how am I going to get my next drink? Where am I going to drink? When am I going to drink? How am I going to buy it? All those things. And, it became really prevalent for me in my life, but it was a circumstance that was out of my control. Can I tell you a story?
Sure.
So when I graduated high school, I moved straight to Vancouver, but it was during the pandemic. It was in September 2020. And I moved into the dorms at UBC. And it was, overall, I had a great experience. I'm really grateful for that experience. But the only reason that I moved there and that I was allowed to move there was because I was playing rugby. I was on their rugby team. And it was very lonely. It was very, very lonely in the dorms, Advin. Because you couldn't have anyone in your dorm room, right? Pandemic, let's, not spread germs kind of thing. So it was pretty much just the athletes that were there and the international students. And that was it. So it made for a very almost eerie feel all of the time. It was just eerie thinking about, you guys are the only ones on campus. All the classes are online. My season ended up getting canceled and we trained anyways. But, in that first year, there was no games or anything like that. And, I succumbed to drinking to self-medicate. I couldn't deal with the fact that the world was changing so rapidly. It was changing every single day. And I couldn't cope with the idea that this might be my reality forever.
How did drinking feel like for you? The state of being drunk?
It felt freeing. It felt like I didn't have to worry about anything,
Yeah, it was a solution for a short-term problem.
Absolutely.
But destructive for the long-term.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so my day would basically be, you wake up, you do your online classes that you hate, you go to practice, you work really hard, you come home or you come back to your dorm room, and then, someone knocks on your door and they're like, hey, we're going down to the beach. And that's what we would do. We would go to the beach every single night, and just absolutely drink way too much.
And it's one of those, alcohol is one of the only drugs in the world where people think something's wrong with you if you are not engaging in it.
Absolutely. That's exactly where I wanted to go next with this, is a lot of people don't understand that alcohol is a drug.
Yeah.
It's a mind-altering substance, which therefore classifies it as a drug.
Actual poison.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And when I actually quit drinking, for real, I was like, oh my God, why do people do this?
And it's accepted. Society, we all accept it.
So acceptable.
Even with marijuana, people still are it's still not acceptable. Insert any drug, even prescription drugs. People still have stigma. But alcohol,
even nicotine.
Yeah, alcohol is the only one where it's just, couple of drinks, man. Don't be
let's have a beer after work, kind of thing.
Don't be a Debbie Downer.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been a really interesting journey with my sobriety, because I was nervous at first to, tell people, hey, I'm not drinking anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. Because I felt a lot of fear that people would say those things to me. What the hell's wrong with you? Why can't you just be normal?
Your friends,
yeah. I didn't want to lose my friends.
Yeah.
But you know what? It actually taught me. It taught me who my real friends were.
Yeah.
Versus drinking buddies.
Yeah. Do you have real friends or do you just have drinking friends?
Yeah.
I've realized that I too have stopped drinking. I just it was never an escape for me. I just never liked it. So it was pretty easy for me to quit.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that people do cast judgment. People think something's wrong with me because I don't drink.
Yeah.
They think I have some sort of substance issue,
Yeah.
or they think I'm being negative, I'm bringing the party down. But that just kind of it was a filtration system.
Yeah.
The people that didn't want to hang out with me because I didn't drink, they just like dissipated. And good people, it's just our values don't align. But then the people that can sit down without any mind altering drugs stayed. And instead of talking about brain dead stuff and just uproaring and laughter because we're all drunk, and then stopping by McDonald's on the way back from the bar because you got the drunk munchies.
Yeah.
You sit down on a Friday night, maybe at just at somebody's house, and you talk about life, and you talk about the issues, and instead of deteriorating your health and sacrifice for the kind of the social benefits, you get insight onto how other people actually act when their mind's not altered.
Yeah. And that's interesting that you say that, because I now, like, at first I was like, oh, I can't be around people who are drinking. Like, I don't want to tempt myself, because it would have been really easy at first to just be like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, I'll just have one.
A couple of drinks.
Yeah.
It never hurt anyone.
It never hurt anyone.
Then a couple more after that.
But I realized very quickly that, the first drink is the most dangerous one, because it gives you permission.
Yeah.
Right. And so preventing yourself from having that first drink is really, really important. But I, even now, like, I don't mind if, I'm hanging out with my friends in my backyard on a Friday night and, someone wants to have a beer. I don't care. Whatever. I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Do I love being around excess amount of alcohol? No. Do I love being around people who are excessively drunk? No. But who does?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm sure you've been to insert bar in Edmonton. It's never pretty what happens after 12.
Yeah.
Like after the AMs.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., whenever, like, people are fighting.
Yeah.
There's people that are just engaging in just the horrendous kind of verbal attacks and just
making a fool of themselves.
Yeah.
Making a fool of themselves at the end of the day.
And then you wake up the next day and you don't feel good. So that's another day on top of the night. And so your body's trying to recuperate. Then when Monday comes, you still feel a little bit of that effect. That's why Mondays feel so heavy for people, is because on Friday or Saturday, they're partying it up. And then on Sunday and Monday, they're recuperating. But yeah, lots of my friends don't really drink. No, actually, that's a lie. A lot of them do drink, but they know that when they're around me, I'm just not going to be the person that would drink with them.
Totally.
It's just
totally.
Yeah. And it's, you know what? You could still have a conversation with them.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Maybe for them, like, if they can control it, all the power to them. But if you don't like it, if you can't control it, and if it's not beneficial for your life, then there's no point.
There really isn't. And it got to a point where I had to sit myself down and be like, okay, like, you are falling into a pattern here, Gina. And the pattern was this. It was two things. It was a very simple cycle. I was sad, so I would drink. And then I would drink, so I was sad. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. You know what I mean? And I was just like, why? I don't want to live like this anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it comes a point in your life where you have to make a decision and you have to accept, I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. We've talked about already, your past is not what defines you. Those periods of drinking in my life is not what defines me. But it's important to recognize that if you don't break these patterns and habits, you're going to be stuck in them forever.
Enough is enough. You need to be able to not be a slave to a substance, and you need to be able to resist, and you have to look at it from an objective point of view and realize that, oh, there's so much more to life.
There really
Yeah.
is. There really is. And that's where I think a lot of the beauty of writing comes into play, especially poetry. I know we haven't gotten there yet, but a lot of people ask me like, oh, like, were you drinking when you were writing? And I think that's one of the questions you wanted to ask me, how it's affected my creative process. And the answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes. I did it. I drank for a long time because I felt that I didn't have that creative spark anymore. I felt like there were things that had happened in my life.
It's like the people that are worried to fix their mental, their neuroses because, oh, I was a successful author when I published this book and I was broken. I was on anti-anxiety meds and I was on kind of SSRIs. And if I didn't have that, if I wasn't an alcoholic, if I wasn't smoking weed, then maybe I wouldn't have that creative edge. But is that really do you feel good? Right? Say it does make you succeed. Are you doing it in the expense of your mental well-being?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The book that I have published, A Yearning Recollection, I did write that while I was drinking quite heavily. And I published it while I was drinking. And I have to accept that that's not who I am anymore. And that's okay. Like, we all go through periods of judgment. We all go through periods of trials and tribulations. We all go through times that might not, be super succinct or accepted. But you have to understand that, your past is, again, like, not what defines you. You are the author of your own story. You get to choose who you become, right?
True. Yeah. And that's not when you read those poems that you wrote or those words, that's not to take away from the power of them, right? That's just like a different mode of thinking, and that's not to take away from kind of the novelty of it all and the beauty. And people wouldn't read that and go, oh, Gina was in this phase of her life. Like, you're still a good person. It's just you were hooked into the substance, and it was a way for you to escape some of the things. And
totally.
Yeah, that wouldn't tarnish your creative modality.
No, not at all. And I think it's just like, even, we talk about how alcohol is so societally accepted. You never know. And that's also a scary thing to me. You never know, like, what people are doing in what state. You know what I mean? Like, I look at, I don't know, let's use an example. Like, your teacher marks your test and you get the test back and there's an error, the correct answer is A and you answered A, but the teacher was like, no, the answer is B. You don't know if that teacher could have been drinking while they marked that. And that's a scary thing to me. Or
you don't know whether they're going through a divorce or they're going through grief. And on top of that, they're self-medicating through alcohol. You don't know if they were just diagnosed with cancer.
Absolutely.
Or maybe
they're just having a bad day and they missed a question. You know what I mean? You never know anything about anyone. You really don't unless you take the time to sit down and listen. And I think that's a really important point for a lot of people our age to understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. What advice would you give to someone who is considering sobriety, but they're unsure how it might affect their life of relationships?
I'd say try it. Just give it a try. If you're like, I don't like this, it's not for me, then don't do it. But I would say, I think that everyone should try to release themselves from the grasp of a substance. You know what I mean? There's so many things that we do in this life to help us live. Does that make sense? Like, even you think about like people who take melatonin to help them sleep. You think about people who put protein powder in their smoothies. Those are just like very mundane examples. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. Of course, it's not wrong to try and do those things, but just to show yourself that you are in control. right? You have the power to make choices of free will. We talked about free will, right? It all comes down to free will and love. I really think you have to make the choice to love yourself, to do what is right for you. You also have to make the choice to exercise your own free will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And then there's also like, so what if you lose those relationships when you do undergo that journey of sobriety? They weren't your friends. Like
No.
they weren't real friends.
No.
If you if you're making a decision that is beneficial for you, why would it make sense for your friends to tell you, "Hey, that's beneficial for you, but I'm so insecure about my own drinking and my own life that if you made the step to improve, I'm going to get mad at you because I don't want to see you getting ahead of me in life." And there's this idea of you're sure you want your friends to do well, but you only want them to do as well as you. You know, like you don't want them any past. And that's like a very toxic way of thinking. But I see that in some of the friends that I've had in the past where I undergo this self-development journey of kind of having purpose and meaning and not engaging in debauchery and not kind of having these one-night stands and drinking all the time and smoking and doing video games. Some of them were not supportive, and it's, you know what, like I appreciate all the memories that we've made.
Yep.
I appreciate the time, and I will hold that close to my heart. But yeah, we're just in different chapters, and one day maybe that person will realize that, oh, maybe playing video games till 2 a.m. and drinking and hating other people and talking shit all the time is not beneficial to my well-being, and it's not a worthy life.
Totally.
Then we'll talk. But for now, it's gotta work on yourself first.
Yeah. And I don't think that, like, you know, not drinking makes you better than anyone. That's not what I'm trying to say.
No, of course.
think that you have to do things that are right for yourself.
Best for you.
For you, not for anyone else.
Yeah.
You know, I remember a time where I was doing things because like I said before, I thought that was what everyone else wanted me to do. And even when I was living in Vancouver, you know, it was very, you know, this is what everyone does. You know, this is what, not even like the cool kids, but like literally everyone. And that fear of social outcasting is very powerful, especially on young, impressionable minds. You have to understand that, you know, the majority of these people who are partaking in these activities were 18, 19, you know, very, very young. And I think that we forget that sometimes. You know, you and I can sit here and talk philosophy and talk about our ideas about the world. But at the end of the day, like, we only have 22, 23 years of life experience.
Yeah,
right?
True.
And I think that alcohol especially, and any other mind-altering substance, it's very dangerous because when you're exposed to it, and you think about, like, I won't ask you personally, but even you can just think to yourself, at what age did I start drinking? You know?
Probably
and you don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
14.
Okay, yeah.
But it was just like my friend's house, and we like snuck in the pantry, and it's just cool.
Yeah.
And like that it was what the cool kids did.
Yeah.
And it was normalized in Hollywood. It was normalized in the media. Normalized everywhere. Just even kids at school were talking about it. And I read this quote, just because 1 million people engage in that activity doesn't make it okay. Just because 1 million people are insane doesn't make them normal.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. And I really think that, you know, this societal pressure that we feel to conform to drinking, conform to, you know, this, that, the other thing. Let's go through these motions of getting a job, you know, getting a house, you know. You look at people who don't do those things, and I'd say maybe 90% of the time, they're happier than the average person.
And
you know,
when they focus on what they truly think is the right path.
About.
That's like when I see people without social media, when I see people that just focus on themselves and they love their family and always have a smile on their face. Like they go about the world where it's all about what they want. And I
Yeah.
think there's so much power to not conforming to what is fed to you through kind of these big conglomerates of
Yeah.
power.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that the whole idea behind drinking is escape. That's my
Yeah.
idea. If you look at like the actual like anthropological roots of alcohol and stuff like that, like there's a reason prohibition was a thing in the 20s.
It's also a psyop from the alcohol businesses. I mean, they want you to keep drinking
Oh
so they
yeah,
can put money in their pockets.
we are all playing into the capitalist
Yeah.
machine.
Yeah. Like that's their benefit. Why
Absolutely.
is anyone doing for anything for money? It's just so the business can be propagated and roll in the income.
Yeah. You ever read 1989 or 1984? Sorry.
We read that in grade 12. Yeah. Big
I
Brother.
recently reread it,
Like,
and I was
George
like,
Orwell?
whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's
eh?
very
I mean,
fascinating.
it makes sense now in this day and age.
I think it's made sense for all of humanity. You know what I mean? If you want to exist in the condition that you do, sometimes you need escapes. Sometimes you need, I don't want to call it self-medication because that's stigmatized, but sometimes you need that escape from your own reality. And alcohol is a very easy, accessible thing for people to get and for people to use in order to do so.
And yeah, with advancing technology too, it's always been true, but it becomes more and more able to, as power and influence becomes easier to access the minds
Mhm.
of the next generation, it's easier to instill kind of the propaganda and instill to get these beliefs out. And there's also, then again, it's also easier for us to communicate. There's just a lot of knowledge and information out there, and it's good to kind of decipher which is good and which is bad.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that the way I look at things like now is if somebody handed you like a pill and they were like, take this pill and, you know, you'll forget about all your troubles and you'll feel maybe a little bit sick and you will laugh more and you will, you know, be able to talk to people more.
give me that pill.
You take that pill?
No,
You take that pill?
Tell me more about the pill.
Okay. And this pill also, you know, you'll feel like shit the next day probably.
Yeah.
But you will, you know, be able to breathe a little bit easier. Would you take that pill?
Probably not, because I know anything that sounds kind of too good in the short term is usually a sacrifice in the long term, from what
Yeah.
I've seen. Like if you look at people who are really easy for them to jump on the pill, and they don't see this, the self introspection or like the sleep or the social connection, the
Mhm.
diet that you have, the lack of love in your life, lack of meaning. They don't engage in exercise. It's like, no, you got to make sure you go through all the things that do work in humanity.
Yeah.
Instead of just, okay, I'll just go to see this psychologist. They said I have depression, anxiety. And while I do believe in those things, and that's an ongoing issue, people are too quick to jump onto that short-term solution.
That's
Instead of-
interesting. I think I disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
I think I disagree with you about that a little bit. I think that, you know, there's a lot of things in our lives that we have no control over.
Mhm.
Genetics being one of them. You know, people are sometimes predisposed to those mental illnesses. And I think that medication has its place and has its properties.
But you kind of have to try all the kind of the natural side of things first.
You
give it some
want to go
time.
more holistic.
Yeah. And sure, while you're doing that too, you're also actively engaging in the exercise, in the talk therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the pill is the last kind of resort. And sure, for most people, I'd say. But then there are some that actually truly depression is rampant in their psyche, and there's just insurmountable. They've tried all the things and nothing works. And I don't know. I'm not an expert on that, but
No.
just from what I've seen anecdotally, it seems that we do live in this day and age where people are a lot more miserable, and I feel that the short term solution is being funneled. But like for
Do
me,
you think that we just kind of like live in an over medicated world?
not that I have enough knowledge,
Okay.
because I don't really know enough of the statistics. Just from what I've seen, yeah, it's a lot of people that do not have conversations like these. They don't actually have the love in their lives, and they don't actually have like a good purpose-filled life. And yeah, they just focus on the pill. And that's kind of what's kind of keeping them sane.
Did you understand what the pill was?
The pill?
Yeah, that I was like metaphorically giving you.
No.
That I described all of it. Do you know what that was? What
Alcohol?
I described?
Alcohol?
Yeah. Yeah, those are the effects of alcohol.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that would just like in our society, like where, you know, I took DARE, you know, I know.
Oh, I won the essay for it.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's awesome. But, you know, I took DARE. I know not to, you know, accept strange drugs from anyone. But I also know that, you know, people are more susceptible to accepting things when they look good, when they taste good, when other people are doing them. Right? So anyways, that's just food for thought.
What did alcohol feel like the first time you consumed it?
The first time I really remember like drinking, I was pretty young, to be honest with you. And I just remember feeling a lot. I remember feeling a lot of things. I remember feeling like, oh, like I finally did it. You know what I mean? Like I finally took a drink.
From the people who have had an issue with alcohol, I've heard it described like it's the elixir of life. Does that resonate with you?
I don't think so, because I don't know. I don't think my decision to gain sobriety was because of a problem I had. I think it was because I relinquished that control. But I think that I can understand that.
The feeling of it was just euphoric.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I never got that. Like I consumed alcohol, and it was never like some sort of euphoric feeling. It was just my brain just felt inoperable. Like I just didn't feel functional, and I would say things that I normally wouldn't say, and that's what it felt like for me. I didn't feel good necessarily. It just felt hype. Yeah.
I think for me it was more of a feeling of like, okay, like I did it. I can do it. I can do this. But as I got older, and as I, you know, drank more, not in excess, but like over a period of time, I really came to understand that I was using it as a tool. You know, I used to say to people, oh, you know, like my first 2 drinks don't count because they just get rid of my social anxiety. like what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
That's fair.
It's crazy.
That's funny. Is that common?
Oh yeah.
People say that?
Oh yeah. I know a lot of people who say that.
I've been so out of the drinking world that I don't even, like, I don't know the sayings now. Like, I don't know like when people don't even invite me to the bar, like I've said no so many times that like people
I know, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. And I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about writing, editing, and publishing a book.
The book. Yes.
Book. A yearning collection?
Recollection.
Okay.
A yearning recollection. Do you know what that means?
I know yearning is you want something, and then recollection is you recollect all your ideas into one. Yeah. And so you get to understand yourself more by collecting all these ideas, and in retrospect now you could grow from it.
That's very insightful.
Yeah,
I wish that I was that insightful when I made the title. No, a yearning recollection to me is a longing for the past. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think about my days from last year. I'm like, I feel it seems to be my mind goes to like the positive stuff. Just I've kind of
Good.
programmed my mind.
That's
And
really good.
even though I probably felt miserable that day,
Yeah.
I kind of just go, oh, like that was I like to look at my Snapchat memories and I like to just smile in all my pictures
That's
just because
good.
of that effect of prioritizing the good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, my yearning recollection was thinking about the past and thinking about, like the good times and stuff like that, but also like thinking about things that I can't have back. You know? I look at my life and I think about who I was in, let's say 2021, 3 years ago. Oh my gosh. Like that's crazy to think about. But thinking about who I was and what I was doing and just really longing for a lot of that joy back, a lot of that innocence, a lot of that, excitement about the world. Yeah. So that's kind of where it came from. And also just like yearning for, people I can't have back.
Yeah. There's all these chapters in our lives and you never know when it ends up
Yeah.
until it's just like 4 years go by and
I
you
know.
look back and you go, whoa, like that was pretty cool biking with my friends on a Tuesday after school or like a weekend getting ice cream with my best friend. And now she's 2 countries away.
Yeah.
Or now that person is dead, or like
Yeah.
to
Also
put it
that.
morbidly. And then you just cherish all these emotions and you just, the memories, that's all we've got.
It is. It really is at the end of the day. But memories are weird. Memories sometimes lie to you. And I've had to come to understand that because, the neurons in our brain, they only activate when we use them. And if you think about something quite consistently, those neurons are firing all the time. But if you don't think about something, those neurons kind of
They
erode.
dissipate. Yeah, neurons that fire together, wire together. When you think of the things that have happened to your life in that moment, the context of it just focuses on that moment and you forget. That's why you forget all the details. You just kind of focus on that
The
memory.
big picture. Yeah.
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 What inspired the theme of your first book? Or I guess we kind of talked about that, but I'd like you to elaborate. And how is the process of working on your second book deferred?
Yeah. So yeah, surprise. I'm writing another book.
Yes.
Which is very exciting. I think my first book, like thematically, focused on my relationships with other people. I know we touched on this when we talked yesterday. But, it was all about like these different relationships that I have with everyone. And a lot of people, again, like are like, oh, like romantic relationships. But a lot of it, like we have a relationship with everyone we meet. Your relationship could be classified as stranger. Your relationship could be classified as friends, acquaintances. We have a relationship right now because we're doing a podcast together. My relationship with my best friend, with my mom, with my dad, with my sibling, all of those things. Those are all important relationships in my life. And as well as, like friends and partners and stuff like that are also important relationships. But I really wanted to focus on the idea of like a very non-linear kind of recollection, I guess. So the parts of my book are not labeled as such. They're more, poetic. But basically they follow the path of love, loss, hurt, heal, art. Those are the 5 parts. And as we traverse through each part, it's very much a journey of understanding, okay, like how can different people in your life love you? And then how can you lose different people in your life? And then how can you feel hurt by these situations that you are in? And how can other people hurt you, intentionally, non-intentionally? How can we heal from that multitude of love, loss, hurt? And then finally, what are the benefits we can reap from it? What art can we salve from these emotions? So yeah, that's kind of the book.
Oh, cool. How does that process work? Like, do you just like sit down and start going?
Yeah.
Or are you at work one day and then you have a notepad and you just go? Or when you're just at an event? Like, do you have like a notepad ready to go?
No, I don't. I do most of my writing at night, actually. I'm a bit of a night owl, which I'm really trying to change.
Late owl gets the mouse.
Yeah, but the early bird gets the worm, admin.
I don't know if this is original, but early bird gets the worm.
Yeah.
Right. Late owl gets the mouse, but the second worm does not get eaten, and the first mouse gets eaten, and so the second mouse gets saved. So at the end of the day, to survive, you must do what's better for you.
Perfect. Look at that. Look at that. I thought you were just trying to tell me to sleep all day, which I would love. I love sleeping.
Like, you could be, okay, if you're the owl, you have to be the first, you have to be the late one.
Yeah.
Right? That's when they spot the mouse. Or if you're the bird, you have to be the early bird.
Yeah.
But if you're the worm, like, you can't be your buddy. Your buddy has to go first. Or if you're a mouse.
We never think about the mice or the worms.
Yeah,
eh?
yeah. Like, we don't even think about that. The first mouse gets eaten. Like, the first worm gets eaten by the bird. It's like that's another living organism. So
yeah. So I think the lesson that I took away from that is to always let your friends go first.
Yes. Yeah. Push them. Like,
push them out of the
apocalypse. Make sure the zombies get to them first.
But anyways, I'm a late night writer. Kind of my process is, thinking about things that have happened throughout the day, different interactions that I've had with people, but also thinking about like, how I'm feeling that day. Am I a little bit dysregulated? Why am I feeling dysregulated? Has a deep breath fixed it, or do I need to write about it? Fair. And something that a lot of people like don't really understand is how absolutely like freeing writing can be.
Oh,
to
God.
Absolutely verbalize your thoughts and to put them down onto a page is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly like cathartic. You know what I mean?
Paper is patient. That's what Anne Frank said.
Yeah.
That's why it doesn't judge you. It's just paper.
Yeah. You can write whatever you want and the paper won't tell you anything.
Yeah.
The pen won't, tell you, oh, that's a stupid thought to have.
Yeah.
Your friends and your editors will later.
Yeah.
But in the moment, you can just let it be. You can just let it be and sit with your feelings and sit with all of that. And I think that like a lot of people, especially our age, are currently running. It's that fight or flight. I feel like so many people are distracting themselves and trying to get away from their problems, get away from their emotions, especially. A lot of people that I think you've even had on this podcast are running from their feelings, from their emotions, whatnot. But to sit quietly and understand how you feel and know why you feel the way you feel and hold space for that, especially that grief. Grief is such a big one. To hold space for everything that you feel is probably one of the ultimate life skills.
Powerful. Because you see I've seen some ultra successful people like for the companies that I've worked for, and when I see them like lose their emotions because there's that lack of kind of understanding themselves.
Yeah, and regulation.
That regulation, like no breathing or anything, and they're just so quick to jump into this emotion and not being able to understand what's going on internally because there is no journaling and there is no mental framework, and it's
and
all
even talking
discombobulated. Yeah, because even
keeping
then,
things,
if you like conversation,
up. Yeah,
conversation is so powerful.
It really is.
I've been working on getting rid of my like, rights, and ums and you knows.
I've
been working on the pause.
Yeah.
And not being, because whenever there was that pause, like the 2 seconds of, I'd feel like there's cortisol coursing through my veins going, oh, they must think I'm dumb.
I have to say something.
I have to say something. And I'm just going to say like, or I'm going to say, I'm just going to do something with my voice. But being comfortable, just going, yeah, this is me thinking. It's so powerful.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I really enjoy about writing is you don't have to write the ums, you don't have to write the buts, you don't have to write the likes. You know what I mean?
Consolidates your thoughts.
It really does.
It aligns because your thoughts are going 2,000 miles per hour.
At least.
And your speech goes so much slower, like 30 miles per hour.
And then when you physically write things out,
it's even slower.
Yeah.
So then you actually have time to process that. And then you read that back after and be like, whoa, I do not know how to function my mind's just everywhere. This is not what I think. Like when you see that. And so you make adjustments and you get better. And now I'm sure you're probably like phenomenal at aligning your thoughts with your speech and your speech with your writing. Right?
I think I have trouble with speech. I really do.
I think you're fine.
Thank you.
Fine.
I appreciate that.
You've had a good talk. You're able to extend what you believe in, and I'm able to absorb it.
Thank you. Yeah. But I really think that writing is my forte, just because it really does slow everything down. You know, I talk a lot. I've done a couple other podcasts, and in them, I talked about this big magic that I feel, and I point to my gut because I feel it like in my stomach when I am writing. Sorry?
The flow?
It's like a flow state. It's like a runner's flow state, like a runner's high or something like that. But I call it big magic. And in that time, you know, nothing else matters. It is you and the pen and the page. And that's a really powerful thing. And when I get this big magic, I just know what to say. There's no fear. There's no resentment. There's nothing. I know what I need to say and I know how to say it. It's indescribable. It's a really, really cool feeling. And it's something I'm really grateful for.
That's awesome. Yeah, you definitely honed in on that. Hey, I journaled every day for like a year and a half straight. I've just been a bit more busy, but I do it now 1 to 2 times a week now.
That's awesome.
And it's just, it's putting your mind onto that paper is just cathartic, and it's even scarier for you to put it out to the world. Hey, and actually,
it's been a bit of a journey to try and get the book to where it is, like especially in the editing process. Yeah, editing sucks.
I bet. What does your editing process look like, and how do you manage self-doubts or perfectionism while refining your work?
Great segue. I think that, you know, my perfectionism really shines through when I am editing. I remember in my book, like going through and fixing every single one of the dashes that I used. And I was so mad at myself. I was like, Gina, like, why didn't you do this sooner? Like, why are you so stupid? Like, you know, like, why didn't you do this? Why? And there comes a point where you just have to let it be. You know, I was told at a very young age that the biggest part of art, the most important part of art, is knowing when to stop. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, like the creative mindset. Like even this podcaster, I also write big chunks on my Instagram. Cool. Like just like even writing for people, and just I'm constantly texting people, and I don't like I don't text people just for fun. It's always trying to build something or plan something. And it's kind of just being comfortable with, okay, that's what you want. And sure, you can like go and look up synonyms and think, oh, is that intelligent? Is that this? Kind of that trusting the feeling of, okay, that's the best that you could do at that moment. And there's, just putting it out there. And of course, there's also kind of the competency of it all. Like you have to be realistic, maybe get some friends to read it, or maybe compare it. And bad to compare yourself, and just you have to look at it objectively and go, okay, I'm going to see what this does. And you can't be too attached to it and make it your identity. And sure, it is part of your identity, but you can't let it an end all be all. It's just part of the process.
Yeah, entirely. I had a partner tell me once, you'll love this quote. I'm sure you know it. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah. That one's really good. I've repeated that like 10 times. Yeah. Like on this podcast.
Yeah.
I was gonna drop it again, and I'm like, okay, no.
You and your quotes, man. I challenge you for the rest of the podcast to only use original thought.
Yeah.
I challenge you.
Sweet.
See if you can.
I'll try. Probably won't be a good idea though, because
No, we can
none
try.
of my thoughts are original. It's all
No thought is
copy and
original,
paste.
and that's a fact.
What are the most valuable lessons you've learned from navigating the publishing world, and what advice would you give to aspiring authors?
Okay, so my publishing journey was very nonlinear. I sat on this book for a couple years, but I eventually decided that I needed.
Finished?
Pardon me?
It was already finished for 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had finished my manuscript, and I sat on it and sat on it and sat on it, and I was like, "What do I want to do with this?" And eventually, I was like, "You know what? I want to tell my own story." I have so many people in my life who have this idea of me as, this person versus this person versus this person. And I want to be the author of my own life story. Literally, I want to tell my own story. And when I finally made the choice to publish, it was a very long process. You reach out to publishers, they read your work. Sometimes they take 6 to 9 months to get back to you. And I was sick of that. I was like, I don't have time. I don't have time for this. I need to tell my story and I need to tell it now. I could have done with some patience. I really could have done with some patience. But I decided to self-publish. And that is a choice that is actually even more popular right now than the traditional publishing route. It's really important for people to understand, because a lot of people think, oh, you self-publish, you didn't really publish a book. No, it's exactly the same. I still have an ISBN, and it just eliminates the middleman. You just don't have to go through a company and fill out a million forms and, give them royalties and stuff like that, which has also been nice. I get to keep all of the profit from my own book. So that's cool.
It is available on Amazon. What else? Where else
Amazon's probably the easiest place to get
Amazon.
it.
Yeah.
And if you don't like Amazon, if you don't believe in Amazon, you can just contact me. I'll get you a copy.
Yeah. There's also the Lulu. I clicked on the one on your bio on Instagram.
Yep.
Is it Lulu?
Lulu Books.
Lulu Books. Okay.
So yeah, those are where you can get the book. It's a very cool book, but I think that the editing and publishing process took a lot out of me, because I was so worried about what everyone else was going to think.
Yeah.
I was so worried about what my parents were going to think, my grandparents. It's a very vulnerable book.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. It sheds a lot of light onto a lot of situations I've been in. And, I talk about people that I've loved and people I don't love anymore and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's my story. And who am I to deny the chance to tell that story?
Beautiful. Are there any words you could of encouragement or advice for the people that do want to publish their own book one of these days?
Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. You'll get it done. Yeah. It might seem scary and daunting, but at the end of the day, it is your story, and that your words are important. Even if those words mean something to one person out of 7 billion people, you've made an impact on someone's life. Even if your words only mean things to you, you've made an impact on your life. Publishing my book was very, very therapeutic for me to just get it out, of my system. And now I reread the words and I'm like, yeah, that's how I was feeling at this point in my life. That's how I was feeling at this point in my life. And it's not how I feel now. And that's really liberating. That's really, really liberating. So I'm looking forward to my next book, because it's less focused on people, and it's more about me and my story and what I've gone through. And reclamation is, I think, and reconciliation is a big theme, and atonement.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. I really admire the themes. They're very,
thank you.
Yeah, well thought out, well structured, and I think this is only the beginning. I think you'll continue to keep publishing or writing and have all these phenomenal thoughts.
I appreciate that, Advent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gina Schnepper, everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and I think that you should definitely dabble into some good short stories too. I feel like that would, like a novel. Did you ever?
Yeah, I've always wanted to write a novel.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah, as always, to everyone listening and watching, there is a place for you in this chaotic world. Never lose hope, strengthen your faith, and keep it long term. Peace.
All right. Look at that, man.